Well, good afternoon, everyone. Assembly Republican Leader James Gallagher, and you just saw the ridiculous result that came out of the Arts and Entertainment Committee this morning, where two very common sense bills were rejected by the Democratic supermajority on this committee, where we were, for standing up for common sense, we were called Nazis. You can't make this stuff up. And I'm really tired of this Democratic playbook of instead of dealing with the real issues and dealing with them truthfully, they result to these kind of tactics and these kind of mental gymnastics that you saw in this committee this morning. It was revealed for everyone to see. What we are talking about is standing up for young women in the state of California. And we wish we weren't here having to talk about this either. You know, the speaker mentioned that today. Why are we talking about this instead of cost of living and all these things? It'd be one thing if they were actually doing anything about cost of living, by the way. He might have a point if they were actually doing something to lower people's costs. But the reason that we're here is because of their policies, their radical policies that now result in a real result that's going out there. Right now, we have a track athlete that is a biological male that is defeating all of his opponents in track and field meets up and down this state. Women are being deprived, young women are being deprived of that podium. It's an absurd result that comes from this policy, right? Our young women are being forced to undress in locker rooms with boys. It's an absurd result of flawed policy. And so we've come here to say we need to fix that policy. And our members brought common sense bills designed exactly to do that. And instead, the Democrats call us names, say untruthful things, and deflect from the real issues. So, Republicans are going to continue to call this out. We need to fix this problem for our young women in this state. And it is real to dismiss the experience. I brought up a couple examples, but this is experienced by many young women throughout the state, many of them who actually came here today to testify in support of this bill. So don't dismiss what's really going on. Deal with it fairly. And I think the real problem is here they would have to admit that their policies have caused this exact problem. So much so that even their own governor, who has his own problems with the truth, finally came out and admitted that this is unfair. This policy has resulted in an unfair situation that needs to be dealt with. Now, he didn't really do much about it. I don't see Gavin Newsom here today. Do you guys see Gavin Newsom? He brags all the time about how he can jam the legislature, right, to raise our gas prices, to raise our energy prices. He's done that in the past. If this was a real priority for him, fairness for young women in this state, you think he might have been here. You think he might have made some calls. But I don't see Gavin Newsom because he doesn't really believe that. He believes in this flawed policy. That's what he believes. America, that's what he believes, okay? Do not be deceived. We're not deceived, but we're actually going to do something to try and right it. And that's why we've been here today. So now I'd like to invite up our members who brought these common sense bills and who I think made a great case to the committee this morning. Reasoned, rational, civil, talking about the issues. And it's unfortunate that they were treated the way they were. And we'll begin with Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez.
Thank you, Leader Gallagher. I want to be exceptionally clear about the intent of my bill today. AB 89 dealt with CIF, competitive high school sports. We aren't talking 5-year-olds, we're not talking 8-year-olds. We are talking teenagers and competitive sports. The conversations we heard today were not of unity, and I will be clear, I never said ban because my bill would not ban. What my bill did, we stood for all high school athletic females. They deserve a safe space. They deserve to be protected. We advocated for them. In no way do we talk about banning or any hateful rhetoric. So to be called a Nazi, to say that we're up here a bunch of Nazis, shame on the Democrats in committee today. This is not the end of this bill, I intend to make sure, and I'm sure our caucus will agree, we will champion the rights of girls and women in sports from now until we see a change. I so encourage our governor to come sit with us at the table. I am sorry that we didn't have the full committee today, and I'm shocked Speaker Rivas decided to join us, and that's okay. What we're gonna do is champion and be the voices for all high school girl athletics. They deserve to have a voice in this, and they deserve to be protected.
Thank you all for being here today. What you just witnessed was not really a hearing. It wasn't a dialogue. The Democrats just lined up and gave speeches. The speaker, who won't even give interviews, put himself on a policy committee, which is unheard of. Maybe they were worried how the member he replaced was going to vote. I don't know. But for him to come down and lecture us, who have no power in this House, who have no power over the policies of California, they want to talk about funding girls' sports and protecting girls in spaces, safe spaces. They run the state of California. All the failures are on their shoulders. So we're not going to be lectured to or gaslighted by the Democrats. They don't get it. They don't get it. The governor gets it. These people don't get it. They lost 3 seats in the last cycle. They're going to continue to lose the confidence of the voters and the people of this state and nation if they double down on these policies, which is what they just did. What I want to do right now, I just want to say a big thank you to Taylor Starling. Taylor Starling is an athlete from my district. She's living this nightmare. She's living this. She's suffering the consequences of the policies enacted by the people in this building. This isn't some statistic. It's not some anomaly. It's real, and it's affecting her life and her ability to go to college and compete and have scholarships and have the opportunities and dreams. But Taylor took this and she made it into something positive. She started a movement on her campus. She started a political movement. She made t-shirts. She said, let's save girls' sports. And for that, she was called a Nazi, not only by the Riverside Unified School District, who the superintendent is resigning in disgrace, or retiring, whatever she wants to call it. She got called a Nazi again today, and that's disgraceful. That should not happen in America. So every year, as a legislator, we get to honor a woman in our district. This year, I chose Taylor Starling for what you did. So I'm going to present this to you now. It's a little unusual at a press conference. But you are my Woman of the Year, and I want to thank you and really appreciate you being up here. You were so composed, and you did a lot better than most adults do up here. So thank you, Taylor. And we can bring your dad up. Quick photo.
Hi, my name is Heather Hadwick from District 1. As a mother, a former varsity athlete, and coach, I'm proud to have co-authored AB 89 and AB 844 to preserve fairness in girls' sports. High school can be tough on any girl. It's just a tough time for everybody in it. Imagine that struggle compounded by the presence of a biological male on their team or in their locker room. Even Governor Newsom agrees this is simply not fair. We must acknowledge the importance of spaces where girls can thrive without feeling overshadowed by unfair physical advantages. I brought my son with me today. I'm gonna have him come up here. This is my 16-year-old son. He's 6'9". For him to play on a girls' team wouldn't be just unfair, it would be extremely unsafe due to his size and strength. Thank you. Just as we should respect and empathize with the people who are transgender, our female athletes deserve that same respect, which they don't get when a biological male is in their locker room or playing on their teams. We want our transgender youth to be welcomed at school, to join clubs, to play sports on co-ed teams, and play with their biological counterparts on a fair playing field. We are not coming at this from a place of hate, but of respect, love, and dignity for all. We must protect the rights of girls' sports to have a safe and fair playing field, but respect goes both ways, and that means that we need to protect all of our youth. I am disappointed that the committee chose to ignore our female athletes' concerns. As Republicans, we'll continue to protect the integrity of girls' sports and continue to highlight the impacts that these decisions are having on our girls. Thank you.
Thank you. Every individual is diverse. They bring different experiences, different backgrounds to every job, every interaction. There's a lot of adjectives that describe each of us. For my part, there's a number of adjectives that describe me. My opponents probably use some salty adjectives from time to time. But one of the adjectives is, I'm a proud gay American. If I felt that these two bills were anti-gay or anti-trans, if I felt that my colleagues supporting these bills were anti-gay or anti-trans, I would not be here today. We affirm the rights of transgender community members to live their best lives. We believe that every community member, including our transgender community members, should be treated with dignity, respect, and fairness. But dignity, respect, and fairness is a two-way street. And it is neither dignified nor respectful to demand that a young underage girl share a shower or a locker room with a biological male. What about the dignity and respect for our girls? Our Democratic colleagues seem to have no concern, no consideration for their feelings. We also know that it is fundamentally unfair to allow a biological male with competitive advantages to corrupt the level playing field of girls' sports. What's the consequence when you have an unfair competition? Someone who does not deserve to place first, who does not deserve to get a scholarship, robs that opportunity of someone who earned it the right way. We are dashing girls' dreams by allowing biological males to enter a competition with an unfair competitive advantage. We take it as common sense that we would never allow a competitor in a sport to use a performance-enhancing drug. All of us agree to that. That's simply not fair. It's not acceptable. So why is it any different when you have a competitive advantage by virtue of your biological gender? Look, these bills reflect a supermajority consensus in the state of California that even a majority of Democrat voters in the state of California agree with, that we should protect the integrity of girls' sports, and that when it comes to treating our girls with dignity and respect, having a biological male in a shower room, in a locker room, is simply not acceptable. As my colleagues did point out, there are a number of ways that we could make accommodations that are fair for all, that balance this issue out. But our colleagues across the aisle, they're not interested in balance, they're interested in division. We had two stories at today's hearing, and I hope the press covers the two stories at today's hearing. The first story is something that you refuse to acknowledge, and maybe it's because you don't have a familiarity with the LGBT community. As a member of the LGBT community, I know this for a fact. The LGBT community is sick and tired of being used as window dressing for an extremist agenda. They do not agree with what the Democrat supermajority did today. They support the integrity of girls' sports. And what you saw in terms of the hearing testimony were LGBT community members coming up to Sacramento. And this is profoundly important for you to understand. In the gay community, if you disagree with the radical activists that run the gay groups and purport to speak on our behalf, you will be canceled and shunned. But those LGBT community members had the courage to come up here to Sacramento on tape to testify in favor of these two common sense bills. I asked this media to report that profound story that I think would be of quite a great interest to your viewers, your listeners, and your readers, that the LGBT community supports the integrity of girls' sports. that there is a civil war going on within the LGBT community because they're sick and tired of being used as window dressing for a radical agenda. You had the term Nazi thrown about, 1940s Germany. This is the same cabal that preaches tolerance, diversity, equity. This is unacceptable in this capital. To call LGBT community members who testified in favor of girls' sports Nazis is deeply disrespectful. It's ignorant. It's toxic. The second story is that we have a difference of opinion up here, but apparently we also have a supermajority that doesn't understand the American system of government. We absolutely affirm that transgender community members have rights, and we will protect and defend their rights. But in our American system, no one can exercise their right if it comes at the cost of someone else's right. What the Democrat supermajority wants us to do is to eviscerate the rights of girls. California voters do not want to do that. The Republican caucus, we do not want to do that, and we will fight every single day to affirm and protect the rights of all Californians, our transgender community members, as well as our girls. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Assemblywoman Leticia Castillo. Hola a todos, soy la asambleísta Leticia Castillo y estoy aquí hoy porque quiero dejarles saber lo que sucedió hoy. En el comité, hoy los demócratas aquí en Sacramento votaron para parar 2 proyectos de ley para proteger a sus hijas en los deportes. Esto no está bien. Nosotros, los republicanos, vamos a siempre luchar por sus hijas. Ahorita es una agenda que va contra la familia y eso no está bien. Quiero dejarles saber, eso es lo que está sucediendo ahorita y pongan más atención porque sus hijas son importantes, nosotros sabemos eso y vamos a seguir luchando para ustedes y sus hijas en los deportes. Muchas gracias.
Questions?
I just want to pose what I also tried to ask Speaker Regas today, but do any of you have any concerns about the Trump administration threatening to withhold funds over the fact that the state has this policy still? I know they called out your bill by name, but
Do we have concerns?
any thoughts? Just, yeah, I mean, are you worried that the Trump administration might not take money away from the state because of it?
I'm not worried, I'm encouraged. I mean, if that's what it takes to bring California compliance, then I welcome it. So my colleagues might disagree, but the federal government has a lot of influence over the states, and primarily it's through money. And that's how they control policies, whether it's on our highways or whether it's drinking limits or age limits for drinking, it's through financial means. So if California wants to keep the federal money flowing, it's got to comply with federal law, and whether that's on this issue or sanctuary states. So the only people jeopardizing funding for Californians are the Democrats. They can comply, and there'll be no issues.
On a related note there, Ashley, this is important because when this whole debate over parental notification at school started, it was, the Department of Education, Tony Thurmond's Department of Education that was telling school districts that if you don't keep secrets from parents, if your officials don't, if they don't refuse to tell parents when kids at school are transitioning their gender, that they would lose out on school funding and that federal funds could be lost. I mean, and the Biden administration was doing this as well. There was policies passed out of the Biden administration. So when we're talking about this issue about federal funds and what's required, please remember that it was the Democrats who were threatening, and the Biden administration who was threatening school funding over parental notification, over the right of parents to know what's going on with their kids at school, okay? Now, the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, has come out and said, yeah, you have to follow Title IX. And yes, we do expect you to follow the laws, the federal laws. And so that has come out, and California does have to make sure that they are compliant. And all we're saying is that means that you got to protect the integrity of girls and women's sports in California. It isn't complicated. It shouldn't be controversial. It actually should be pretty easy. But remember that it was them who were threatening school districts that you would lose funding if you didn't tell parents what's going on with their kids at school, that has to be included in any discussion when we're talking about this.
And let me just say, let's remember our history. It was the federal government that had to go into certain states to protect the rights of African Americans. And so the federal government, in our system of government, we have the U.S. Constitution, and the most important amendment to the Constitution, there's a lot of competition, the 14th Amendment. Due process, equal protection under the law. The media refuses to cover the story of our governor and our legislature, the Democrat supermajority in this legislature, wantonly and repeatedly violating the constitutional rights of the citizens of the state of California. When you have a governor who has no regard for the rule of law, no regard in this legislature for people's rights, then it's incumbent upon the federal government to take action. And the courts take time. The Newsom administration and the Democrat supermajority, they've already lost in federal court when it comes to parental notification. That is done. That is settled law. It was predicted at the very beginning. But school districts were bullied. They were threatened with state funding loss. And so the real story that needs to be told here, because I know that the Democrats are out there peddling, well, we may lose funding. We would lose funding only because of their gross negligence. We would lose funding in this state only because Democrats are willing to violate the constitutional rights of Californians to get their extreme agenda crammed down our throats. They need to be held accountable for the damages, not the federal government. The federal government should be welcomed in adhering to and supporting our constitutional rights for our girls and all parents.
Okay, any other questions from the media?
I'm curious if any of the next steps on this issue include a ballot initiative, since, like, for example, with Prop 36, it wasn't successful through the legislature, so groups took it to voters, if, that's an option for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, we've seen that in the past, obviously, and there have been groups that have talked about doing an initiative, and I think what we've seen in the polling is this is where, Californians are. They do think that this policy has reached an absurdity, an absurd result, and we're seeing it in real time. So I think it's a possibility.
But we have something we didn't have before, the federal government. We have the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, we have the Department of Agriculture. They're all launching investigations right now. So that's more powerful, I think, right now, and they're on our side. So I think that's a lot of power, and that's something the state's not really grappling with, the severity of the consequences of their actions.
They're on the side of young girls
Yeah.
in California, and
Look,
that's the really important thing.
The only
so.
thing that happened today is we now have a recorded vote from last week of Democrats willing to vote to put our girls at risk and to to continue a policy of unfairness to our girls. And they're the ones that would be putting us on a collision course with the federal government in the loss of funding for important educational programs. It's time that the media report the facts, the fact that the law is on the side of parents and girls. Report that. This is not a theory. This is settled law. The 14th Amendment case that was brought on parental notification. It's 50 years of Supreme Court case law. Liberal courts, moderate courts, conservative courts all upheld the rights of parents. We could have predicted where we were going to be on day one, but what did we have? We had 13, 14 months of parents being bullied, school districts being threatened, and of course, how many children have been put at risk while that policy was implemented? Unconstitutional policy was implemented. So it's important for, I think, the media to get the story straight. I believe that this is pretty much over. We wanted our recorded vote. We gave them an opportunity to do the right thing. They've shown their true colors. Their true extremism was on display in that committee hearing, and it was on display in their vote on Thursday or Tuesday last week when Mr. Saley warped one of the bills.
I'm wondering
All right,
if
thank
the
you.
leader or either of the authors of the legislation reached out to the governor at all after he made his comments? Did you have any attempts to?
Reach out. He doesn't talk to us. I've never had a conversation with the governor. He sends out tweets about me. He's never picked up the phone and called me. He's never had a meeting with me. The governor's.
Did you attempt to engage them?
Look,
we have reached out to
let me respond. Laurel, I think the governor is very well aware of our position on this issue, the fact that we're running these bills. The governor is the one himself who decided to make this an issue by having Charlie Kirk on his podcast and saying that he agreed on the issue. So the question is really upon him. Where is he? You know, because here's an opportunity to do something about that fairness issue that he outlined. So it's not like the governor doesn't know, you know, what's going on here, doesn't know that we're proposing these bills and that there's an opportunity to right this wrong. He just refuses to do anything about it. He likes to talk about it because he wants to run for president. He wants to seem reasonable, but everybody knows that his policies are anything but. And that needs to be advertised, you know, throughout the nation.
Well, I think the bigger question is, can you get him to respond to the question? Because it doesn't seem as though he takes questions from the media on this topic either. Maybe he'd invite you on the podcast. You might be able to ask more questions that way.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You guys have mentioned your support for some of these investigations that the Trump administration is launching in California. At the same time, the president has said that he wants to hand over more power for education and education funding over to the states. I'm wondering, do you guys think that's a good idea here in California, given your opposition to a lot of the?
Yes, I think that, you know, billions of dollars spent on buildings and bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. could be spent a lot better here in California on student success. Now, are there policies in the state of California that need to change to do that? Yes, absolutely, because under Democratic supermajority control, half of our kids can't even read at grade level. So yeah, we need to change some things and refocus things on our education system. But yes, those monies, I think there should be a whole lot more of that money coming here to our classrooms and helping our kids succeed.
And the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Justice has all the authority it needs to pursue these issues absent a Department of Education.
Okay. Thank you, guys, and we'll be available for individual stuff as well. Thank you.